And they wonder why those of us in our 20s refuse to work an 80-hour week just so we can afford to buy their BMWs. Why we aren't interested in the counterculture that they invented, as if we did not see them disembowel their revolution for a pair of running shoes. But the question remains, what are we going to do now? How can we repair all the damage we inherited? Fellow graduates, the answer is simple. The answer is...
In the opening to Reality Bites, Liliana delivers one of the most defeatist valedictorian speeches ever to grace a podium.
The answer is... I don't know.
The I don't know that she delivers at the end of her address speaks directly to the existential angst felt by many Generation X graduates who felt disenfranchised by the American dream and saw emptiness in lucrative employment. The film captures an adjustment period in the lives of these young graduates. The daunting prospect of having to find a place for themselves in a world where they feel they don't belong. The characters in Reality Bites don't see any virtue in participating in the capitalist rat race.
Yeah, so what's the plan?
I'm not going to work at the Gap, for Christ's sake, okay?
But instead, they find their virtue in jaded apathy. Troy is the very embodiment of this nihilistic attitude.
So you shouldn't feel so bad. One of these mornings I'm going to wake up before noon and...
Yeah, right.
He is a genius trapped in a world where intelligence has no marketable value. He talks openly about the emptiness of human existence.
It's empty. There's no point to any of this. It's all just a random lottery of meaningless tragedy and a series of near escapes. So I take pleasure in the details, you know, a quarter pounder with cheese.
He has no momentum to participate in a meaningless marketplace.
What is it that you want from me, huh? What is it? You want me to get a job on the line for the next 20 years? Until I'm granted leave with my gold-plated watch and my balls full of tumors because I surrendered the one thing that means shit to me? Well, honey, you can just exhale because it's not going to happen, not in this lifetime.
Liliana, an aspiring documentary filmmaker, unlike Troy, does attempt to participate, but her documentary doesn't get taken seriously by the suits at in-your-face TV who manipulate and distort her film until it is unrecognisable to her.
The answer is...
Pizza!
Pizza.
Pizza.
Her dream of saying something meaningful is ripped away from her by commodification. Alistair Wong asks of her readers in her article about postgraduate anxiety to imagine that you are on a roller coaster. Gradually the car moves you along the brightly coloured track. You feel the wind against your face. You slowly ascend, but when you reach the peak, just about to fall over the edge, your pulse quickens, a pit opens in your stomach, anxiety boils somewhere deep within you, and then you are let over the edge, pounding into the person next to you, fumbling around twists and turns, occasionally being turned completely upside down. One goes on to argue that this is exactly how she felt at her own graduation. Unless you have a vast array of connections, especially for those with liberal arts degrees, like the characters in the films we will be discussing, then you'd better get used to comments about your useless degree. You'd better be ready to work menial jobs like Vicky, who works in Gap, Aura, who works as a hostess in Tiny Furniture, or Francis performing clerical work in Francis Ha. You'd better be ready for the promise of university to be broken. Tyler Durden said, "You are not your job."
You are not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking cactus.
But the trouble is that society goes on telling you that you are. The films that will be discussed in this video essay deal with characters who are at the peak of that roller coaster, looking down on what is yet to come. For those graduating into the millennial generation, there was no promise of employment after graduation. Defined as students for so long, what were these young philosophers going to do after they graduated? The job market had changed dramatically, and there were more graduates than ever before. Shortly after the opening credit sequence of Reality Bites, Liliana is having a celebratory dinner with her family. Just like in Sean Penn's Into the Wild, which was set in the early 90s.
Congratulations, son. It's a big step.
Thank you, Dad.
Liliana's father, like McCandless's, offers her a new car.
Gas card.
I'll pay that bill for 1 year. And since Helen Ann's got herself a brand new Infiniti, we're going to give you her old BMW. You can pick it up at our house.
BMW? BMW?
Yeah.
I want to buy you a new car.
That's right.
A new car?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I want a new car?
To both Liliana and McCandless, this is an empty gesture.
Are you worried what the neighbors might think?
Didn't you listen to her speech today?
Yeah?
She doesn't want a BMW.
Mom, I'll handle this.
No, I'm not going to sit here and listen again to some strange ethical argument about a damn car. It's got 4 wheels, it runs well. And little darling, after you've been in the real world for a while, you're going to appreciate that car.
Yeah, just think of all those starving children in Africa who don't even have cars.
Status isn't important. Liliana doesn't need a fancy BMW. They don't want these things.
I don't want anything.
Okay.
Just these things.
Okay.
Graduating doesn't define success anymore, and our characters are fully aware of this. They find meaning not in money, but in experiences.
I mean, the core of man's spirit comes from new experiences.
For these liberal arts graduates, wealth feels dirty. It's this confusion over what the future holds, about what these characters really want, that makes them feel so empty, isolated and depressed. Liliana states that she thought she'd have done more with her life at 23.
I was really gonna be something by the age of 23.
And McCandless goes to extreme lengths to find a purpose, to find himself, to find meaning in all of the meaninglessness. Tiny Furniture is a film about the solipsism of millennial graduates as they too try to discover their occupation. Lena Dunham plays Aura, a recent film graduate who moves in with her mother and falls into a state of postgraduate depression and anxiety.
Thank you. I think you're being mean.
I think you're being oversensitive.
I just got off a plane from Ohio. I'm in a postgraduate delirium.
Aura is a tragic, everyday character. The film is essentially a series of conversations about nothing in particular.
I feel like every time I wrote a poem in college, it was completely about virginity loss. And I would also read it in this horrible voice, like, this is my slam poetry voice.
Passing the time until the roller coaster finally tips the characters over the top. But this hyper-realism and lack of any real cohesive plot further speaks to the existential conflict of having no sense of self, no space to call your own, and no sense of real purpose. Aura confesses that she has no idea what she is qualified for.
Plus, no one's even financially independent until they're at least 25, or even 30. What do you think you'll do?
I have no idea what I'm qualified for.
Like many other postgrads in the earlier films I've discussed, Aura is just trying to figure it out. She doesn't think she is better than the menial job she's been taking, but she thinks that she's somehow different. She can't truly find her place.
Oh my God, Mom, I'm figuring it out. Mom, I'm on it. Mom, I'm all over it. I am so sick of your words.
Ashley Clark writes on her pop culture blog that the prevalence of Aura's hipster attitude in the film asserts this difference, but also acts as a homogenizing force. It might be slightly reductive to say that Frances Ha is another film about postgraduate anxiety. It is a lot more than that. Frances is a little older than Liliana and Aura. If Tiny Furniture and Reality Bites depicted this state of postgraduate depression whilst it was happening, then Frances Ha deals with looking back. Frances is 27, although she is told over breakfast that she looks older.
Do I look old to you?
No. Yes. How
Yet
old?
she is still immature. She still hasn't really got herself out of this postgraduate rut. She spends her tax rebate on a dinner with her flatmate, and on a whim, she uses a credit card to fly to Paris with no regard for the financial consequences of her actions. She declines job offers even from the dance company that she attends because she feels like she is exceptional. Like the other characters, she is still dreaming of something more. She is not offered a chance to be in the dance company as a performer, so being offered a significantly lower job is a blow to her ego.
I mean, you don't want to be an apprentice for the rest of your life.
Nope. You know, you should think about putting your own stuff together.
Like how?
Like your own work.
Oh, no. I kind of gave that up after college. Plus, that was basically like cheerleaders doing my choreography.
In each film, there is a moment of self-actualization for the characters. Aura breaking down in the shower after her mother lectures her on figuring it out. Liliana as she watches the premiere of her documentary that In Your Face TV have pulled apart. Frances, tossing and turning on her bed in Paris and looking into the mirror, looking into herself and seeing that her life is falling apart around her. These moments of realization act as turning points in the narrative, where the romantic notion of a carefree and idyllic future is torn away from these characters, where they finally have to settle on a compromise. It may seem defeatist, but that's what all of these films eventually move towards. Our characters have no real happy ending, they just have compromise. So why are these films about postgraduate anxiety so alluring? Aren't they just depressing? I remember a line in a Winter Olympics song that goes,
I watched Reality Bites 3 times last night, and it nearly made me cry.
This is a painful time in these characters' lives, for sure, but looking back on it, post-compromise, I think all of the characters, much like the audiences, would agree that it's also kind of hopeful. It's romantic, the future is still full of promise. Even as Frances moves from place to place, a literal example of how uncertain life is for people of her age and younger, there is a singular kind of romanticisation about the experience. Postgraduate anxiety is not fun per se, but it is a necessary part of learning and growing. It can be a hopeful time, and Frances Ha latches onto that hope. This is captured perfectly in the sequence where Frances dances through the street to modern love, careless, liberated, and free. Frances Ha almost validates the fears and anxieties of postgraduate ennui by adding this touch of hope, that there can be a future on the other side of the existential crisis.